Hey, how you doing? I'm Gil Gross. It is good to have you with us tonight. Got an interesting thing to talk about with you this hour that probably affects your neighborhood. And you're probably not all that choked up about it. Or maybe you are. Actually, it all depends. We'll get into that in a second. I'll explain what I'm talking about. First, there's a couple of things on the desk I want to get off the desk because I'm tired of looking at these faces. You got a desk and you got George Steinbrenner and Harry Connick Jr. staring at you, man. You want to clean off that desk as soon as possible. So who should we do first here? Steinbrenner? Steinbrenner. And this has nothing to do with the New York Yankees or sports. It has to do with the fact that, as you know, Congress and I aren't friends. We're not on speaking terms at the moment. So while they're looking for cuts in the congressional budget and the federal budget, you know what happened here? You know George Steinbrenner, you know where he made his money? In a shipyard. He built ships for a living. That's where Steinbrenner made the money to buy the New York Yankees, American Shipbuilding. So, while they were saying, that there's not enough money in the budget and they have to raise our taxes, I know this is like a minor amount, but still, it gives you an idea of how Washington's really run. George Steinbrenner's shipbuilding company, which according to congressional investigators, screwed up on federal contracts and then tried to charge the federal government for it. His company had the gall to go to Congress and say, well, you should pay us the money for us screwing up. For example, welders at his shipbuilding company accidentally cut into electrical cables, requiring the cables to be repaired and causing a fire on one ship. Okay? Steinbrenner goes to Congress, lays out $16,500 in political contributions, and lo and behold, kids, in the federal budget is $58 million to bail out Steinbrenner's shipbuilding business for their screw-ups. They screwed up. We're paying for it. Congressman John Murtha, Democrat of Pennsylvania, Senator Daniel Inouye, Democrat of Hawaii, and the chairman of the House and Senate Appropriation Defense Subcommittees, $16,500 worth of... Man, what a bargain. Can you imagine being able to buy $58 million for just $16,500? That's great. I'd make that deal. And what kind of return is that? Somebody figure that out in your calculator. You give $16,500 to a congressman and a senator, and you get back $58 million. I like that. So that's the Steinbrenner story. And then very quickly, the Harry Connick Jr. story. This happened in New York City. Harry Connick Jr., apparently for the second time, went to Kennedy Airport with a gun in his carry-on luggage. Apparently he did this a year ago, and the incident was hushed up. So he did it again. 9mm. By the way, this guy's dad's an attorney general. So you think, a district attorney, in Louisiana. So you think he knows better. So he goes to the airport, he gets caught. And just in case you think the rich aren't different from you and me, you know what they had him do? All right, you or I go to the airport, I got a 9mm in my carry-on. Do you think I at least pay a fine? Probably. Do a little time? Probably. Harry gets to do a public service announcement. I mean, come on. I mean, if a 17-year-old kid who did that would have to do 5 days in jail or whatever, this guy should be doing 5 days in jail. He shouldn't get off with being more famous and looking like a good guy doing a public service announcement. I mean, it's wrong. It's just wrong. Anyway, that's it. That's my... never mind the fact that album he cut when he was 11 years old shouldn't even be on the market. It's embarrassing. All right, that's it. Okay, let's get down. I know I get ticked off of the strangest things, but there you go. Let's get speaking of getting ticked off. Let's talk about what's going on in your neighborhood. The porno explosion. Remember the good old days of pornography theaters? No, I said it right. The good old days of pornography theaters. Handful of dirty old men in raincoats that looked like something. The raincoats looked like something Columbo had given to the homeless, would show up in sunglasses on even the darkest of days. When the film was over, they didn't hang around the neighborhood because they didn't want their boss or their employees to see them, so they fled the area as quick as possible. Those were the good old days. Video explosion comes, the theaters go away, and because of the video explosion, where people can buy a video once and watch it in the privacy of their own home as often as they wish without fear of being seen or fear of catching whatever the heavy-breathing guy in the seat next to them might have had, the theaters go away. The only problem is, the catch is, X-rated video stores are opening up in residential neighborhoods all across America. Everywhere. Whereas the X-rated theaters used to be like, downtown and all that kind of stuff. Now, these things are all over the place. And not just like the major, because stores like Blockbuster won't carry X-rated videos. So you're getting stores that are doing nothing but X-rated videos now, because the major chains won't carry them at all. And they're opening up all over the place in residential neighborhoods, and parents are going nuts about this. And look, it's a recession, and landlords will take a check from anybody whose check doesn't bounce. So that's what's going on around the country. I got two people to talk with you about this who have some differing opinions about it. Charles Millard is in the studio with me. Charles Millard is a member of the City Council of the City of New York. Charles, welcome.
Thanks very much, Carl.
Good to have you with us.
Nice to be here.
Gil. And Bill Margold is on the phone. He is director and actor in X-rated films for 23 years and a former probation officer?
Among other things.
Okay. Let me start with Charles, because he really brought this up by writing an op-ed piece in the New York Times about it.
Carl.
Carl Millard, one of my close dear friends. Obviously, we're meeting for the first time. That was called "Stop the Porn Explosion." What's the problem here? Is it pretty much as I said? These places are open up all
I think
around?
you put your finger right on it. There's a couple of things. I mean, AIDS causes people to want to have safe sex. Solo sex with a video at home is a form of safe sex. It's not just the stores either. It's also an explosion of topless and bottomless dancing establishments. That's one problem. The other problem is the recession, and the other factor is that way more people than used to own VCRs.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that there are a lot of people who think that no one should ever be able to have pornographic material. But there are a lot of people who say, I don't want my 14-year-old maybe going in there and renting this stuff when I'm not looking, because I want to have some say over of their upbringing. And there are people who say, I don't want my, whether it's 4-year-old or 14-year-ld, looking at signs, advertising movies like Edward Penis Hands. Am I allowed to say that?
Which is, well, you just did. It's a part of the body, and let's face it, this is going to be an adult discussion about an adult subject, and as long as it doesn't get stupid, sure. The problem, I guess, also, and Bill will bring you into this in just a second, is that the stores generally used to be people. It's funny. I never thought that people in neighborhoods would long for the good old days of the guy who would sell these things in the back of the candy store in the back room. Right? It wasn't in sight. And now they all have like flashing lights.
Right. And if the video stores would sell them in the back room, a lot of people wouldn't care. It's the flashing lights, it's the big signs, it's the very lurid detail in the explanations of the movies and in the pictures.
Okay, Bill's groaning. Hi, Bill.
Yeah, all of this is well and good, but it's what's called free enterprise. The other situation is simply this. In a strange way, I side with Mr. Millard, and I would like a zoning situation enacted, because I've always felt that it's much better for the public to come to us rather than us to go to the public. I think by making us more of the resistible item of putting the carrot, so to speak, in front of the jackass that is society, you're bound to get, for lack of a better terminology, more profit. What Mr. Millard doesn't realize is that by the supposed oversaturation of these stores, we're enacting the elimination of these stores. They're slitting each other's throats in volume. The videos themselves have become a quantitative rather than a qualitative industry. And as I told the Meese Commission back in 1985, if you leave the X-rated industry alone, it will go away. But what Mr. Millard is doing in his own way is practicing a form of censorship, and that's dangerous. Now, he may not think it's censorship, but it certainly is. And his situation of suggesting that children will be affected by this is ridiculous, because there are no categorical studies of it. Essentially, he should be sticking to more important items, such as as I've always put it, in a society that is drug-infested, violence-racked, and polluted by chemical greed, no one has ever died from an overdose of pornography.
Well, you've given me some fodder to respond to, if I may, Gil.
Go.
First of all, you mentioned the free market. A lot of people have gone into these stores and said to me, gee, it seems like no one's shopping here. And if you testified for the Meese Commission, you may have read their report, which indicates very clearly that there is an overwhelming influence of organized crime in the pornography industry. And that influence, I don't know that I see it in stores that open up in neighborhoods but do no business, but it certainly is a genuine influence. Additionally, saying that it's censorship really misses the point. Zoning is specifically not censorship, and the Supreme, people say, well, I believe in the First Amendment, I believe in free expression, therefore I would never oppose these things even if I find them offensive. The fact of the matter is the Supreme Court itself has said that the First Amendment definitely permits using zoning to regulate these places. And the reason you can do it is not because you can go after the content. You can't say, I don't like what they're saying or doing. You can say, I don't like the secondary effects. Let me just make this one last point.
Okay.
And Bill says, well, we should be worrying about violence in our society. One of the things you can regulate is the increased crime and prostitution that results. And we shouldn't be surprised when we see these kinds of videos that glorify violence against women, that we end up with prostitution and more crime.
The thing about nobody in the stores, I got to clear something up here because the rest of us are kind of sitting here who've never testified before the Meese Commission going, huh? Is it the theory then that these are fronts for organized crime then?
That would be the theory in what I said.
They're laundering money through the accounts and
but
stuff?
There are other ways that organized crime is involved as well, but that was the point that I was making.
Well, that's a wonderful point, but this thing about the X-rated industry riddled with violence against women is ridiculous because that has been essentially censored out by the X-rated industry since 1975. When I was in front of the Meese Commission, they continually brought up examples, and I continually refuted their examples by pointing out that those tapes had been made 10 years before I got there.
All right, tell you what,
that.
I got to take a break here. There's going to be plenty of time for both of you to get your viewpoints on this. Of course, I want our listeners to talk about it because these places are opening up in a lot of neighborhoods. For some people, they may say, hey, this is a blessing because I like to watch this stuff in the privacy of my own home, and I want this near. For other people, of course, are going to call, and they're going to be the kind of people who have been picketing some of these places. So let's open up the phones at 1-800-456-1227, 1-800-456-1227. And I guess the question is, do you want an X-rated video store in your neighborhood? Does it bother you or does it not bother you? Or are you happy it's there? Let's take a quick break and listen to some fine announcements, and then we'll come right back with you on The Gil Gross Show.
In the Algebra 1, I was getting like D's and F's. Like I was the only one that didn't know what I was doing.
This is Sandy Duncan with a Sylvan success story every parent should hear.
A mother knows her child, and I know Amelia could do it.
Bringing home my first great report card was excellent. I finally did something right.
Sylvan is the answer. I've seen it work.
Sylvan Learning Center can boost your child's grades and self-esteem. So call your local center now, 1-800-EDUCATE. That's 1-800-EDUCATE.
Any nasal spray can clear up congestion.
I feel great.
But unfortunately, some of them only last 4 hours.
Oh, I don't feel so great.
That's why there's Duration nasal spray. Duration gives you fast relief from congestion that lasts and lasts for up to 12 full hours of free breathing. So next time colds or flu get the best of you, get Duration nasal spray for long-lasting relief that makes you feel, well,
great.
Duration nasal spray for long-lasting relief. Use only as directed.
Would you buy a pair of shoes without trying them on? A car without driving it? Then why buy a vacuum on blind faith? Hi, I'm David Orrick, maker of the 8-pound Orrick XL Hotel Vac. And if you call the factory, 1-800-989-4200, you can try out my legendary Hotel Vac in your home, absolutely free for 15 days with no obligation. The best part is it weighs only 8 pounds, yet it outcleans vacuums weighing 40 pounds. Try before you buy. Call 1-800-989-4200.
The date. You and your date have just finished a pepperoni and anchovy pizza, and your breath isn't a little wild. It's really wild. Don't get upset. Get Clorettes. For over 40 years, no other breath freshener's been more effective than Clorettes. So just pop a couple in and relax. Your breath will be out of the jungle in no time. When your breath's really wild, get Clorettes in both gum and mints.
live your life the healthy way. Give your body a break. Eat right today. Good nutrition helps you feel okay when you eat your way to good health. Don't forget your fruits, cause they're good for you. Your veggies will keep you feeling brand new. Eat whole grain breads, it's a thing to do. To eat your way to good health. Fruits, here's what you should know. Perfect for snacks when you're on the go. Munch a bunch of bananas, try a peach or a pear. You can buy on a bread muffin anywhere. Vegetables, now here's the scoop. Frozen or fresh in a salad or soup. Stir-fry veggies can be a real treat. Saute or steam them, you don't have to repeat. Eat your fruit, your veggies, and your grains today. An apple a day keeps the doctor away. Eat your way to good health, Eat your way to good health.
This message brought to you by this station and the National Cancer Institute.
Today is a lot like yesterday. Business as usual, people hurrying around. Most of us in too much of a hurry to concern ourselves with old people who don't want to live, the homeless who are struggling to live, teen pregnancies, AIDS, illiteracy, drugs. Oh, it's overwhelming. It all seems so hopeless. But it's not. Well, not if everyone did just one thing, because that means millions of things, and that's how it'll get done. But it begins with you. It begins with you not saying, if I don't do it, someone else will. So you talk to someone who is lonely. Help clean up a neighborhood park. Report crimes. You can be one of the little answers to the big problems facing every community in America. And because there are more people than problems, things will get done. All you have to do is something. Anything. Now, to find out how, call the Points of Light Foundation at 1-800-677-7309. Do something good. Feel something real. A public service message from the Points of Light Foundation and the Ad Council. I'm Gil Gross. Welcome back. We are talking about the X-rated video stores in your neighborhood that have been opening up across the country. Charles Millard is with me as a member of the New York City Council. On the phone with us, Bill Margold. Bill Margold is a director and actor in X-rated films for 2 decades.
Over 2 decades.
And we've got calls at 1-800-456-1227, and let's go right to it. We'll start with Tracy in Hampton, Virginia. Hi, Tracy.
Hi, Gil.
How you doing?
Good, good. I just had a comment, a couple of points. First of all, with pornography, I think that, first of all, it's a person's choice whether they want to rent the videos or not, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And second of all, I have rented a few of them, and when I go into the stores, and this is in, Hampton here, you've got to be 21 years of age or you're not getting into there. So, as far as kids getting hold of these videos, I don't see where that, where it's possible.
Well, it probably depends. I mean, you guys can tell me, but I mean, kids get cigarettes, kids get booze.
Well,
you send the older kid to go in there, or if the guy sees somebody with $5 in their hand, he doesn't particularly care.
No, there's very stipulative laws that eliminate children from adult stores per se. Also, in most...
Yeah, but there's very stipulative laws that say a kid can't buy beer till he's 21. And give me a break on that one.
And the point that was made earlier about this being a business is, if the kid's there with the money and the guy's trying to make a buck and you're talking about the market, why is he not going to do it?
Good, but you have to remember that first of all, kids are not even allowed in the mainstream adult video stores. In the mom and pop stores, the stores that have major titles, legitimate titles, as well as their cordoned off area, it says adults only. It says there's usually a curtain. There's usually a back room, something that you all seem to want to go back to.
Right, but that doesn't address...
They're not entered into by children. Now, interestingly enough, there was a woman who said that she's even offended by the back room because she then has to excoriate her child for daring to even think about going into the back room. I don't usually use somebody else's quote, but I'm looking at the calendar I put out this year, and the first one is, pornography is not in the hands of the child who discovers his sexuality by masturbating, but in the hands of the adult who slaps him. And I honestly believe that, Mr. Millard, you are attempting to slap the children of the world.
How can I be... A minute ago you said it's perfectly okay to keep them out. We have age regulations. That's a good thing. And then you're telling me that I'm
Yes, but here's
slapping the
the
world
thing.
because I'm saying we shouldn't have kids seeing it.
No, but I don't believe we should either. But the thing is, by constantly using children as the battering ram, which is exactly the reason that the Meese Commission came into use, the X-rated industry has absolutely nothing to do with child pornography. I represent the adult entertainment community. No children, no animals, no aberrant violence. But constantly, the only thing...
No aberrant violence.
Aberrant violence, which means...
What kind of violence do you have?
That means sex and violence at the same time.
I got to agree with Gil.
You got to agree with Gil about what?
With me, I haven't said anything for about a minute here.
Oh, well, the other guy then.
You like Bill Margold.
Yeah.
You know, my problem with these places is, I mean, I'm all for free speech and everything. My problem with these places, I've seen them start to pop up around the country is, and let's face it, Bill, I'm not sure that they class up your industry any. They ain't subtle. You know, they're not classy and they ain't subtle, and they've got like they take the front of the whatever you call the cardboard packaging that holds the video.
It's called a box.
Yeah, they put the front of the box with the picture in the window, and then there's all these bright garish lights. I mean, they don't exactly make themselves neighborhood friendly. They're not.
Or bigger. There's two that opened up on 53rd Street in my area, 25 yards away from one another on the very same block, one of which has, you know, the usual X-rated movie theater kind of practically marquee-sized pictures
Well, that's
with women
advertising.
falling out of their clothes.
That's free enterprise. Falling out of their clothes, you can look in any type of advertisement in major magazines nowadays, on billboards advertising jeans. We deal in a sexual generation. We use skin to sell.
Hey,
look at your advertisements for basketball. These people are playing without shirts on nowadays. And that, we're dealing in a flesh-oriented market. The X-rated industry is for adults only.
But it's not for adults only if that flesh market is being put out on the sidewalks where I'm walking my kid to school.
Let me get the listeners get a word in edgewise here because the show's for them too. Linda in Orem, Utah. Hi, Linda.
This is the first time I've listened to your show, but I just am disgusted to think that these things would come into our communities. We do not have them in our community. I hope we never have them. We have fought them. And you say that that children are not the victims. They are the victims. The wives and families are the victims. Where do you think Ted Bundy, especially in the Utah, and some of these other pedophiles, get their fantasies? I can't even go to a hotel convention.
Ted Bundy wasn't a pedophile.
I cannot go to a hotel convention center and turn on my TV unless I pay to have it blocked out. I found that happened this summer at a Key Club convention. It was the most disgusting thing. I didn't even know it was there. It affected me. And you talk about us
It affected you?
To sell. You talk about skin to sell. Our whole society has become that way. Why do you think we have all the problems we have?
Well, don't blame it on pornography.
Oh, okay. Let me let all of you get a chance to answer that. I got to take a break here. We'll be right back with you on the other side of this on the Gil Gross Show.
Plant a tree for your tomorrow. It's your tree that